Good evening, folks. Bill Morris with Southwest Type 1 Incident Management Team number 2. We're here to talk tonight about the Hermits Peak and Calf Canyon fire on Monday evening, May 2nd. Thank you very much for your time for joining us. There's a lot going on with the fire today, so we're going to get right to it as soon as possible. We've got our operations chief to talk about the fire, and we've got our San Miguel County manager and the Las Vegas police chief to talk about evacuations, as well as our regular ARA, Air Resource Advisor, to talk about smokes, and our fire behavior analysts. And then, of course, our incident commander, and we'll follow up with questions and answers afterwards. But please remember to go ahead and drop questions into the chat there along the side of your screen. We've got 3 public information officers that are doing their best to answer all those questions. And then, of course, we'll be glad to answer as many as we can after that. So with no further, I'd like to introduce Todd Abel, our operations section chief for Southwest Team 2.
Okay, good evening, everybody. My name is Todd Abel. I am one of 3 of the operations, actually 4 of the operations section chiefs on the fire, managing and helping direct and strategize against on the fire with all the resources we have. Real quick before I get started, today was supposed to be another really big wind day. It's still very windy out there, but the predictions weren't as windy as predicted based off the smoke that we have that's kind of settled down over the fire. So the wind was a little lighter today, which did give us a good opportunity to get in and do some good work. We still had fire growth. That still happened today, but it also gave us opportunities to get a little bit more work done and not be chased around by fire. So with that said, I'm going to get started around the map here. I'm going to start on the south side here. The south side, this is where the biggest movement was today. You can see my line that I drew on here. This is the growth from today. Probably somewhere around noonish, maybe 1 o'clock. Something heated up in this area, got a head of steam with the wind behind it coming out of the kind of the west northwest area, and it pushed this fire pretty hard towards our line that we had that's coming out of the reservoir area that drops down to the 283. We are currently doing firing operations off that line that drops down right through here to keep up with this fire so that this fire can't get ahead of steam and wrap around our line and cause any issues over here. Right now the day shift is doing that, and the night shift is preparing to go out and take that from them and continue to go as far as they can towards the 283 this evening. Eventually we may have to turn the corner and kind of put another little catcher's mitt here, we call it, so that when fire wants to move, all the vegetation's been taken away and it has nothing else to burn, and it'll stop right on that line. So continuing to work on all that, that's still looking really good. In this, where we have the homes, Mineral Hill area, all the scattered homes out through this area, all this is being protected by what we call structure groups. They're very active in all these locations. The Blue Reservoir Road that runs through there, all that, they're in there right now as we speak, and they're actually working on structure protection around all that stuff. And as the fire wants to back down, they're picking it up on the roads by doing some firing operations or actually getting in there and getting hose lays in there to keep this from coming down any further. So a lot of work being done in this area. As we come around to the west side, in Division Delta, we watched this again today. We took a few recon flights. With the wind conditions the way they were, we were able to fly a lot more today. So we did some recon flights. This is still looking good. It's not over the divide. It's kind of hung up right on the divide. So no concerns yet, but we're going to keep an eye on this little area right here. Coming up to the further up the north on the west side, the Blue Bell area, some activity in here, no concerns, but we're going to keep an eye on all that stuff. Okay, coming up into this country right through here, things are still looking good. That upper, let me see if I can get this right, Rosciata and Rosciata proper, they have structure groups in there, still doing a lot of work. There was some fire movement in here, but nothing of any concern, and we're going to keep eyes on this until we make sure that this is all cold and out. All right, let's go up to where the activity was yesterday, and there's some more activity going on up there today. Currently, this made that run yesterday. It's been fairly decent in this area today with fire behavior, but what they did do is right where the pass comes, 94 comes over the pass here, they're able to get some dozer line work that goes right behind Mora and over towards Cleveland and kind of put a line in the sand to keep fire from impacting any of this stuff. They are using some firing operations to keep fire and just keep it from backing down and getting into any of these structures and any of the roads, infrastructure, meaning power and all that that's in this area. Very successful. Things are going good based off the lighter winds today. I will tell you that this whole west side is still open. It's too tough to get people around in there, but we want to make sure that we protect all the homes and the values here, and then we'll work on a plan to get this taken care of. Resources looked at opportunities here if this fire wanted to move this way to keep fire from crossing the 518 and 442. Hadn't had to implement any of that, but we're preparing in case this fire does want to move this way. All right, coming down on the west or east side, excuse me. Good day in here, a good firefight going on, but being very successful in here around all those values, all the homes, the gas station. All that is looking good. We are continuing to stay in here and make sure no more homes are damaged or any homes are damaged. But it is looking good, and that is continuing all the way down through here. The guys had a very good day. Guys and gals had a very good day in here and keeping this fire where it's at. A couple things I want to talk about a little bit more is we do have the structure groups, again, all over the sides of the fire. And those structure groups are designed to make sure they go in, they're trained, they have leadership that's trained on how the best way to triage a house, do some structure protection around the house, prep that so that if fire does come through, that it has the best chance possible to survive. Those folks are continuing to work all the way up to 65 corridor doing that. Down in Mineral Hills, obviously in Las Vegas, the values and homes right through here to the north, and obviously on the east side. So they're continuing to work as we get resources in. I'm actually bolstering their resources by giving more engines and crews to make sure that they're successful doing that. We were able to fly aircraft today. We have all of our Type 1 helicopters working on the north right now, and we were looking at doing some fixed wing work with the scoopers and retardant if the time allowed on this south part to buy us time to get all this stuff taken care of in here before the fire wants to move any further to the south or obviously to the east. The other thing I'd like to share with everybody is the statewide mutual aid resources are in. We're in contact with them. We have the same radio frequencies. I was just talking to the leadership before I came over here to make sure we're all on the same page. But those mutual aid resources will be working in Las Vegas and primarily on the north and this west side in case fire does want to come in. Our resources are aware that they're there. Their resources are aware that we're going to be there with them, and the leadership's talking. So the reason I'm bringing that up is that's one of those big things that is important for us as an incident management team and as an operations to make sure that we're coordinating those efforts for the best result for the public. That's all I've got tonight. If you have any questions, I'll be around afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. It's nice to hear that there's some positive work being able to get done in this battle that we're having here. Now, Joensley, the San Miguel County Manager, has agreed to come in and talk with us tonight and cover the evacuations, both San Miguel and Mora County.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everybody. I'm Joy Ansley. I'm the San Miguel County Manager. I know you guys aren't used to seeing me. You're used to seeing Sheriff Lopez and Under Sheriff Padilla, but they're both out doing some assessing and some evacuating tonight, so they both send their apologies that they aren't here. I am going to let Chief Salazar cover the law enforcement part of the meeting tonight, but there are a couple things that I wanted to go over with you guys just to kind of keep everybody on the same page and informed. So, as you heard today, we've had kind of a bit more of a peaceful day, and we did make some progress, which is great because it didn't start out that way. So this morning was pretty rough, and we had a lot of moving parts moving in a lot of different directions to try to keep everybody safe. I know that I want you guys, law enforcement really wants you guys to know that all the decisions that we're making regarding evacuations, we're making very carefully with ops. They're not easy decisions. We know that this is a horrible time. We know that people are suffering a lot of losses, and we know that everybody's scared and not sure where this is going, and we're kind of in the same boat. So we realize that everybody wants to stay in their homes as long as they can, and we want you to stay in your homes as long as you can, realizing that safety is the first priority, and we're going to do whatever we have to keep the public safe as well as our first responders safe. So we know that everybody's getting impatient. This is a marathon, it's not a sprint. Everybody's getting tired and frustrated, and I get it, but we have to stick in the fight together because we don't have a choice. So just to cover a few things, I know that there's been some misinformation out there about shelters. We do still have the shelter in place at Memorial Middle School. That section of town has not been put into a set status as of yet, so we are keeping the shelter in that area. We do also have a shelter in Glorieta at the Glorieta Center that's available, and they have plenty of space for people. So, and we are working on transportation for people who don't have transportation. We are housing a lot of livestock here out at the Zamora Arena. We've had a lot of generous donations of feed, but we're seeing the numbers increase. So we're trying to manage that the best that we can. As far as evacuation status, most of you have been tuning into the interactive map that we have, the high resolution real-time map. I think that seems to be working really well because we had a lot of people who were having issues with the resolution once you zoomed in on certain sections of the map. I think that this map is really working for people, and especially when we get into the more concentrated areas like the cities. So we know we had a really active day yesterday on the north and in the south. So in Mora, we've got the areas that are still in green. We're on 434 all the way up to Guadalupita. They're still on go status and still evacuated. Both North and South Mora, Golondrinas, Buena Vista, Rito Saboya, and all of the other areas around Ladue, Santiago Creek, and Upper Morphe that have been in go status are still there. All of the areas around A3 and A3A up those canyons, those are all still on go status. They're still having a pretty good firefight up there as well. Moving down to the south, we still have the Gallinas Canyon, Porvenir is all still on go status, as well as Story Lake, Hot Springs. As most everybody is aware now, we did evacuate the Camp Luna area and Cinder Road early this morning. In addition, the Mineral Hill area, Ojitos Frios, was put on go status, and we've added a few more set statuses in here. Like we've said before, like Ops has been saying, like everybody's saying, it's kind of a waiting game. We're kind of at the mercy of the weather, and every day's a new day. So we're doing the best that we can. If you guys have any questions, I know that everybody has been really good about reaching out and calling, and we're trying to feed you the information as best we can. But anytime, day or night, if there's something that you feel like you're not getting from us, then please reach out and we will do our best. And I will stick around if anybody has any questions for me. But other than that, we'll hand it off.
Thank you very much for coming and giving us your time, County Manager. And we're grateful to have you here, of course, instead of the sheriff today. And I just want to go ahead and reiterate that point about that real-time interactive evacuation map. If you haven't been able to get to it yet, they're pulling it up on the chat over on the side, but it's also on all of our updates. It's on InsuWeb, it's on Facebook, it's on all of the county websites. It's going to be on our maps, and it's also on the updates that are posted out on what we call a trap line, that out throughout the community where we're posting up old maps, the map that was current in the morning, but in the corner there'll be that QR code to be able to get what the most real-time, up-to-date information is. That's the best tool we've got going. All right, so to continue on, I'd like to introduce Antonio Salazar. He is your Las Vegas police chief. Come up and talk about some law enforcement.
Good evening. So a couple of things I want to address as far as the statuses within the city of Las Vegas and their where they're at as far as the ready, set, go. So no one has moved since. The East Creston or the Creston area is still in the set status, and the ready status are East Cinder, and West Las Vegas, that's still in ready status. Nothing has changed. We had some issues with we've had issues with the fire through this whole time, but we've had some issues with the fire that caused a little bit of concern, but everything got tied up pretty good, thanks to the firefighters out there. Also, again, to reiterate, Memorial Middle School is established as the shelter, and they are working to get anybody who needs to go to Glorieta for transportation. They are working on transportation. Some of the stores were reported to be closed. There's been no evacuations in the city for stores to be closed. Walmart was the first to close, and the reason why Walmart closed is because of staffing issues. They had some people called in and they couldn't staff Walmart, so they closed Walmart for the day. But there's been also some reports that some other stores had closed in the area, and we had mentioned probably a few times in the past, now is not the time to start creating panic with social media and everything else. And I mean, I haven't even been on social media, but I've been, I mean, people relay social media, and the stores should remain open. The city should remain open and operable, not only for the citizens, but for the firefighters. We still need the city to maintain. I mean, we don't want to look back at this, I mean, hopefully 3 months from now and say, well, we shouldn't have done that. We shouldn't have, acted the way we did, the way, we have reports in Walmart with people trying to go in and getting an abundance amount of water for themselves. And I understand water was being donated, but we need to stay positive, and we need to stay calm, and we need to spread the word that the city's not closing. There's no evacuations in the city. The firefighters are doing an excellent job on on protecting all of this area that is in set for all the Creston. I mean, they'll elaborate more on that, but I mean, they have resources all through here and making sure that the fire doesn't get into the city. And again, if it does, then we have plans for that. We're working with National Guard, and we have plans for that. So I just want to reiterate, the city is not closing. No store should be closing. And please be positive. And if anything is being shared on social media, please have it be positive information. And any information that is being disseminated about the fire and any closures of anything is coming from us or fire personnel. And it's not. These are thoughtful plans that we have in place for anything that we disseminate to the public. And with that, I'll be here for any questions at the end.
Thank you very much, Chief. That's a great message. Now's the time for this community to pull together. And speaking of community, here's the mayor of your city right now.
Thank you, Louis Trujillo, Mayor of City of Las Vegas. To this point, I just want to comment on our water and our water quality. There's plenty of water. Our water remains safe. The fire did get into parts of the reservoir on a slow crawl, and I understand that the fires are controlled within the reservoir at this time. We had meetings earlier today with engineers, with the state, and probably about 27 different agencies that joined us to talk about post-fire ways of reparation and making our water safe. So we're working on plans, future plans on making sure that the water remains safe. At this time, I'd like to reiterate what Chief Salazar said. There are no evacuations in city proper. There are evacuations on Cinder Road, the west side of Las Vegas, from the Riverwalk up to the crest or to New Mexico Avenue and beyond, are on set status. Set status means get ready, be prepared, check in with people until further notified. There have been no more evacuations. I've had a lot of people call me and say, why aren't they sending out emergency alerts? Those emergency alerts are reserved only for emergency purposes. They are not meant to update people on anything. They're not meant to update people on the fire. They're not meant to update people on the status of the fire, etc. They are simply for emergencies. So you're not getting the heavy buzz alerts because they are reserved for only those times when there is an actual emergency or we've added another evacuation status to an area. Right now, thank you so much for the Forest Service. Thank you to the State Forest Service, the National Forest Service, the National Guard, the State Police, Sheriff's Department, the Livestock Commission, and the county sheriffs, the city police. I was on my way up here and something funny happened. They stopped me at the roadblock down here on 65 and they asked me for identification to make sure I was the mayor. And right next to the state officer was one of our local officers who say, he's the mayor. So they let me up here, but I'm glad they're doing their job. They are doing their job and making sure that nobody passes those lines. Again, if you're coming out to 65 Montezuma Road, you cannot just come here. You have to have official business. You cannot just, please keep those roadways open for fire department and emergency personnel and the firefighters. Thank you so much for all you do. Appreciate you.
Thank you, Mayor. Greatly appreciate you, sir. All right, next, as far as the smoke message, how this smokes, the fire from this, the smoke, you know what I'm trying to say. How is the smoke from this fire impacting us all? John Pendergast is our air resource advisor to help with that.
Yeah, thank you. As far as the smoke impacts from this fire, of course, as the fire continues to grow daily, the amount of smoke that's being put up into the atmosphere and into the air shed is going to increase. And the smoke is not going to go away for any foreseeable future. So what we do when we forecast smoke is we consider the particulates 2.5 millionths of an inch. So we're talking about a very small particulate, and that's a very common size of suspended matter that's in smoke. And the reason why we forecast it or try to predict it is because it can potentially penetrate deep into the lungs and affect the breathing and the capability of lungs to process oxygen. And so the forecasted air quality, unfortunately, for the populated areas that we saw today, from the Las Vegas Valley all the way to the north, all the way up to the Mora area because of the winds, was very unhealthy at times. And so very unhealthy air quality affects all groups. Even the healthiest people, very physically fit persons, will be affected by any prolonged exposure to this air. Now, we have sensitive groups of people that are generally identified as children and the elderly. No matter what their background is, children and elderly are considered a sensitive group. And the best thing that one can do if you fall into that group is to avoid all exposure as possible to outdoors during this period. So what we try to recommend is that you create a room in your house, away from windows if at all possible, that you can consider that a clean room. In other words, minimize the amount of outside smoke that comes into the room. One suggestion could be to put a wet towel under the doorways or to seal all the cracks and air entries into the room. There's even ways to make homemade filters that you can place inside your house just using a small fan and an air conditioning filter that you can buy at department stores to put over the fan, and that actually can do some effects of filtering the air. So if we can show that graphic. So the winds forecasted during the day, this is basically right now, we have that west to northwest wind. And unfortunately, the air quality is very reduced. Las Vegas down here at our monitor sites is showing very unhealthy in that red level. The descriptive terms that I use to categorize the air quality has been developed by the EPA, and there's 5 different thresholds of air quality. The very unhealthy air is the 4th of 5. So it's the 4th most critical level of air quality, which again affects all ages, all groups, with very unhealthy. For tonight, as the winds diminish, we're forecasting it to be a continued very unhealthy for the areas, all the communities that are basically east of the fire and south of the fire, including the Las Vegas Valley. For those folks that are in the drainages and the lowest spots in these areas, you could even have hazardous air quality, which is the highest level of concern as far as the EPA is concerned. That means avoid all exposure to outside if at all possible. Now, the good news is that, as the meteorologist is forecasting, winds are going to be switching during the day tomorrow out of the south-southwest. So that's going to help clear out the areas, especially on the southern portions of the fire area, down into Las Vegas, and basically south of the county line along the 518. We should have better air quality during the course of the day tomorrow with that wind direction. So best tip is just to minimize outside exposure the best you can during the next 12 to 24 hours, and we will see some improvements during tomorrow. Thanks.
Thank you very much, John. Next, I'd like to introduce our fire behavior analyst, Mr. Dan Pearson.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Dan Pearson, fire behavior analyst for Dave Bale's Type 1 Incident Management Team. And I'll also be covering some meteorologist data from my counterpart, Gary Zell, who's currently at the night shift briefing. So looking at our matrix that Gary made covering the next 7 days, starting off with tonight, we are still under a red flag advisory. The winds are continuing, they're still strong, and our relative humidity is still low enough to justify that threshold. The red flag conditions are anticipated to end around 2100 or 9 p.m. tonight, but the good side of that is we're actually going to get some relative humidity recovery tonight, up to around 40%, possibly 50% at the higher elevations. What that will do is cause the fire behavior to minimize. Winds die down around midnight, plus that relative humidity recovery makes a cooler, damper fuel bed, reducing the fire behavior, which will also reduce the fire behavior first thing in the morning, causing a delay in the onset of active fire tomorrow. So that is this green block in the middle, maximum humidity recovery. And you'll notice that it is in the green for the next 4 days, which is a good thing. So we'll have shorter burn periods comparatively. However, we are still going to have red flag conditions again tomorrow and likely the next day. However, looking into Thursday, Friday, potentially just fire weather watches instead of red flags, but we'll see how that moves forward in time. So tomorrow we're looking at, again, a red flag advisory, south-southwest winds, so a shift from the northwest winds we were seeing today. It's kind of going into that alternating southwest to northwest field again. South-southwest winds in the afternoons, 25 gusting to 45 at the higher elevations. In the lower elevations, 20 to 25 gusting to 35 to 40. Temperatures looking to be in the mid-70s at the lower elevations, and minimum humidity again dropping to single digits, which that basically translates into active fire behavior. So looking into what we're looking at tonight for fire behavior, in Division Delta, the higher elevations, fire is continuing to move slowly to the northwest into Valle de la Piedra. Up in Division Lima, really nothing going on in Division Juliet. It's been fairly quiet. Division Lima, this is a Bluebell Ridge, and this is looking to just continue working itself along the ridge on both sides, but not really make any significant growth, just maintaining activity with these west-northwest winds. Division Mike has been pretty quiet. November into Papa, this west flank is still unsecured, but it's flanking with the fire, and currently, even though it is showing some nice activity with pretty good flame lengths, but it's flanking with the wind and it's moving downslope closest to Cleveland. So relatively minimal fire. I was out there today watching it. It's just kind of sheltered from the winds as you move over here. Backing down the slope, and so even though it is active, it's not making forward progression, just laterally to the northwest slowly. Further east, the fire is continuing to hold along the 94 corridor in Cebolla Pass. So crews were able to get in there and work, so this is showing a lot of smoke, but again, it's within the lines and it's just backing down the slopes, maintaining activity, but not moving out of the area. Down in Division Tango was pretty quiet, except for some spot fires are here they were able to pick up from the push yesterday. down in Sapeo. Those were they had a few of the spot fires that they were able to pick up this afternoon. Some burnout operations over here that look to be continuing this evening in the short grass, that kind of grazed grass, and that looks to be continuing and pretty quiet. And then finally down into Alpha, Bravo to Charlie. So in Alpha, we are west of Devil's Gulch, and so this is probably our most critical area currently. With the northwest wind, all this coming out of Tecolote Canyon, and Blue Canyon is in a flanking orientation, just kind of flanking with the wind. So this is our most critical area where folks are doing the most work. Tomorrow with the south-southwest winds, because of that overnight relative humidity recovery, a delayed start will probably have a decent amount of smoke in town again because of the lower winds and that higher relative humidity. So that smoke should clear up by like around 10 o'clock in the morning, allowing for fresh air, direct sunlight, and fire activity to start picking up again with that south-southwest wind. At that point, in all this in division, Bravo, Charlie, Delta, south-southwest winds are basically like that. Sorry, more like that angle. So as the fire backs, it's just any ember wash will be pushing back into the main body of fire, so relatively slow growth to the southwest. This area of the fire, again, will be the most critical as it is flanking with the fire, but it's moving into current black that we're currently working, currently already ignited fuels. Division Victor will be, again, in a south-southwest, so fire pushing back into the existing black. Same thing in Division Tango. And over here, south-southwest winds will again be paralleling. So it'll be another active day tomorrow, but less active growth that we have seen the last 2 days is what is predicted. If you have any questions, I'll be available afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dan. All right, next I'd like to, and last, introduce our incident commander, Mr. Dave Bales.
Well, thank you, and good evening again, everyone. Dave Bales, IC for Hermits Peak and Calf Canyon fires. Just to recap here a little bit tonight, yesterday was a very active day for us. It was the first day that Southwest Team 2 was here officially on the fire. We had been shadowing our friend team, Southwest Team 1, for a couple days. And yesterday was extremely busy, and we talked about that at last night's meeting here. And then we went into last night, and last night we heard in this meeting red flag winds throughout the evening, west winds. And I was going to bed last night going, man, it's, I hope our night shift's doing good. And you guys all saw what happened. Last night really pushed us hard, and Joy talked about the evacuations we did. I think my ops chiefs woke me up at about 1:30 in the morning with all the activity going on, and I came here into the college, and I really got to comment on the effort that really goes in from the overall team of this community. I mean, there was a lot of hard work going in. The work that had been set up the days before was tremendous, and just the how smooth things were really going. It doesn't seem smooth sometimes, but the effort from the law enforcement communities, the utilities, just all the parts that go into keeping folks safe, and that was good to see real late in the wee hours and moving in today. Today I was scared. I'm not gonna lie. I'm sure many of you were. We were expecting those northwest winds, and again, just like Dan was talking about, we had those southwest winds and we turned to those northwest winds. And after the fire had spread yesterday, and knowing that those northwest winds were coming in, it had the hairs on my back of my neck standing up. I'm sure just like you. And then, so we were good. We had that shading from the smoke. It bought us some time. The weather didn't produce like it would, and that's what we try and capitalize as firefighters and an incident management team. Capitalize on those moments sometimes when it isn't the worst case scenario. So it was, flying aviation is from 2 o'clock this afternoon, getting our resources in to these areas on the fire. We did have some fire growth on the south end of the fire, but fortunately we didn't have that big hard push here into Las Vegas proper. We had folks in plan. There's a plan in place here as we continue to move forward. So today was a good effort there, as even though we did see that large growth here, we have a lot of folks in here really working that edge. And again, our priority areas were that north piece up in the north end of the fire up by Mora, Cleveland, Leduc, that country, you know, we still got a lot of edge out here on that west side. But again, a lot of folks in there really taking an opportunity again with the weather that we had, some aviation, and really trying to secure that edge. And so we'll see how much work our folks got done today at the end of the shift today. And then our night resources, someone just talked about, we're briefing our night resources as we're having this meeting right now and getting them out early to transition with our day folks that really been pushing out their heart today. And then on this east end here in Sapeo, you know, these guys really, this fire really came out hard here last night and again in the middle of the night. And, you know, our folks were able to hold it there along the 518 corridor. So some successes last night with as hard as it was being pushed, you know, evacuating Camp Luna and the cinder block here. It was a tough call. Just like Joy said, it's a tough call to have to do that. But again, looking out for the safety of the community, the safety of the firefighters, and we appreciate that smooth evacuation last night. There are still a lot of evacuations, as you guys heard tonight. Again, we don't make those decisions just lightly. We're planning those out again with the community, with the law enforcement community, the city of Vegas, the county, and so thank you again for your patience with us as we continue to move forward. So just here, you know, tomorrow again we talk about the weather. I look at the weather the next couple days, and you know it's seems a little better, but we know we're under those red flags. It's going to be out of the southwest tomorrow. Our firefighters know we're going to be fighting the other direction now. And then again, when they go into Wednesday, it turns to that northwest again. So it keeps battling us, but we're taking those wins as we get them and making those strides. And then, you know, I look out to Thursday, Friday, and I go, oh, man, it might be a normal day in New Mexico with a 20-mile-an-hour wind and 30-mile-an-hour gusts. But hopefully we'll continue. We have a lot of aircraft. We have a lot of resources here. We're taking advantages of it. Think of that boxing match. You know, we're taking those little punches where we can and just wearing down our opponent, and we're going to keep doing that as long as we're here. So I'll be here for questions. Thank you again. Have a good evening.
Thank you very much, Commander Bales. Now, as we move into our question and answer part, I'm seeing my 3 PIOs that are in the room. They're all on laptops, banging away, answering lots of questions, and they must be doing a good job because I only have a couple 3 questions, and they're all directed for our Operations Chief Abel. First of all, Chief Abel, folks are asking about the smoke that we're seeing. This black sort of wall of smoke that we're seeing here this evening, kind of bending over Las Vegas. They're wondering if that's from the burnout operation you were talking about protecting the town.
Okay, yeah, good question. And that is maybe a little bit of the smoke you're seeing, but the majority of the smoke you're seeing, there's a couple drainages in here with heavy fuel. When I just got done flying a recon flight in a helicopter, maybe an hour before I came in, it's down in some drainages here with heavy fuel on both sides, and it's making runs up those drainages to the top, and that's what's creating a lot of smoke. That corner right here is very active, and this whole area along here is very active also. So where it did get into some of the lighter fuels, the grasses and some of those open meadows, it's hitting little 2-track roads and dying. It's the heavier fuels that are kind of kicking up that heavy smoke. So just a little bit of our firing operations may be causing it, but the majority of it is in this corner and about this portion of that run it made today.
Copy that, as long as you're up here. A couple other questions. We're asking you to kind of repeat a little bit about the structure protection work that's getting done out there, specifically in Porvenir. And then I'll let you talk about Porvenir.
Okay,
And
gotcha.
then there's another one after.
All right, so Porvenir, and I apologize, it's still very good in here. I know it's showing red there, but the closest heat that we are finding when we're using our technology and eyes in the area is this right here. This blue bell is the closest heat to it. There is no heat signatures and no visible smoke on any of this stuff at all. So Porvenir is looking good. The village is looking really good.
And then the other structure protection question was in the area of State Road 65 and Forest Service Road 263 over in Division Delta.
Okay, yeah, so we have structure group 2 in there right now. They've been in there since the start of the threat to those structures and infrastructure in that area. They've got they have a large amount of resources in there, and they're working this whole area all the way through here. What they've been doing the last few days is any fire that's still kind of moving around in there, they're making sure that it's not impacting people's homes, outbuildings, power lines, whatever they can do to protect. They're running up and down this road all day long, making sure things are going to stay from impacting any of those structures.
Thank you, sir. That's it for questions that I've got so far for this evening. So I just want to take this opportunity to really thank folks for taking the time to learn about all we can do to help you. We're very honored to be here to try to serve you and your community. And please continue to follow this public meetings, watch our videos in the morning for operational briefings, the weather videos, follow us here on Facebook, InstaWeb, follow the county websites. We have public information officers answering the phones all day long. And besides folks just out posting up in areas throughout the community where they can go out and talk to you and you can see some of our products. I hope we're meeting your information needs, and we will continue to do our very best to do that. So with no further, thank you for the evening, and we'll call it a day, and we'll see you again same time tomorrow night.